Well, thank you for joining us at our Rehab United ACL forum. We wanted to complement the presentation with maybe some videos to further answer some of those questions that were asked. I know it's one of the first questions always asked is, what exercises can I do specifically to prevent these type of injuries, right, or rehab? Just like Connie mentioned in the presentation, the most important thing is how we focus on the lever arms and the moment arms and the ground reaction forces. So because we want to activate that posterior chain more than the anterior chain and not allow the quad to be so dominant and pulling that tibia forward, we want to focus on how can we challenge that ground reaction force? How can we manipulate it to benefit us? So just like she mentioned, a lot of times it's something as simple as a squat is an exercise that we can use, and there's so many, modifications like she showed, going from a double leg, to a double leg with a, toe touch to a single leg, and then adding reaches to change that. But we're really focusing on is where that ground reaction force is, like she mentioned, in relation to the axis of rotation of the hip. So as we start to do a squat, by just adding reaches and getting our center of mass to move, right? That'll start to change that line of force going further away by adding a forward reach. My ground reaction force is getting closer to the axis of rotation of the knee joint and away from the axis of rotation of the hip joint, which will then create more activation of glutes and hamstrings. So those are the modifications you want to make to something as simple as a squat. But then we talk about just general strength. Yes, there is isolated strengthening exercises that we can take advantage of, for sure, just to kind of prime those muscles, right? To warm them up, get them ready. But then you still have to complement them to more functional activities, right? So something as simple as like a hip thrust exercise, right? Getting into hamstring and glutes. So you can do it with a band around your knees. You're going here, you're lifting up and really squeezing those glutes, right? And then you can challenge it differently, right? You can go then single leg toe touch, right? So you start to load one leg over the other. Once you start getting better at that, is going there. Now this is a perfect exercise that as you progress, you can also start to see little compensations of other remote factors like Connie mentioned in her presentation. You start looking at core. So someone's doing a hip thrust and you see a rotation, right? It could be that maybe one glute is stronger than the other, or one side of the core is weaker, right? And as you start to go to single leg, you might see it even more. You might start to see these dips and compensations, right? So that lets you know that maybe these are strong down below, it's maybe up high, right? So adding anything that can activate the core, squeezing even your hands together, right, will help activate that anterior chain of the core to create more stability. You can use a stick, a ball, anything like that. But then once you start to prep things like that, you can even do like hamstring curls, right, on a Swiss ball. But once you get those warmed up or primed, you can start to go to more functional exercises. So if I choose to start to challenge more single leg toe touch loading of my left knee, right, like Connie mentioned, you can start to add rotations to challenge, load the glute a little bit more, and then after that you start to change angulations to then take away those helpers and start to challenge that valgus. Now, at the beginning, you don't need to go so far where the knee's so far into valgus, right? Start off with slight angulations. Make sure you can actually control that knee and it's not going so far into that valgus position. Once you start to get stronger, then you can actually start to load, still maintain control of that knee, right? And go into further angulations towards that, 90 degrees on the opposite side. Even overhead, right? As you go here and start to dip, can you control that knee as you start to go down, right? And you can go there, you can start to add rotation while you're overhead. So many different variations that you can start to implement into your program and into common exercises just to start influencing the activation of the posterior chain and also how we control that knee into the more susceptible
injury directions or angulations.